Yes, one of the examples that we see frequently in the individual recovery area, but also in the business recovery area, is something called rescission, or making false statements on the application for insurance. So rescission is more typical in the individual insurance context, which is typical in a long-term disability policy or a long-term care policy or a life insurance policy as the most typical examples of where rescission comes up. And rescission is basically where the insurance company discovers that you as an insured made a misrepresentation on the application, and that affected their decision process as to whether or not they were going to issue the policy. And as a result, they seek to rescind the policy, which is basically take the policy back, give you back the premiums that you paid, and act as if you were never in a contractual relationship to begin with. So we see a lot of this, and we have to be very cautious about it when clients come in to seek representation, to make sure that that isn't going to be a problem, and if it is going to be a problem, how to deal with it. Now, in this individual context, typically the language, so it depends on the policy you're dealing with. So if you're looking at a life insurance policy, across the country, you have 2 years from when that policy was issued for the insurance company to look to see if there are any misrepresentations, to see whether or not they could get out of responsibility for paying the benefits under the policy and seeking to rescind. After 2 years, they can no longer do anything about any misrepresentation, whether innocent or otherwise, that is on the application for a life insurance policy. So what insurance companies call this, and what we call it in the industry, is contestability. The right of the insurance company to contest the policy and its existence due to misrepresentations on the application. When you're dealing with something other than life insurance, like long-term care insurance or long-term disability insurance, most policies today will say that during the first 2 years that the policy is in force, the insurance company can contest the policy for misrepresentations made on it, even if they are innocent misrepresentations, as long as they would have affected what kind of coverage the insurance company would have issued had they known the truth. After 2 years, most policies now say that the insurance company can only contest the policy if there are fraudulent misrepresentations contained on the application, which means that you lied on the application and you did so with the intent of deceiving the insurance company into issuing you a policy that they would otherwise not have issued. So contestability comes in some different forms, and ultimately you're going to need a lawyer to evaluate that to, number one, determine, is the question asked and the answer given even a misrepresentation in the first place? And if it might be, then do we believe that it was material to what the insurance company's underwriting process and what they did and would have done had they known the true facts? So there is an enormous number of pre-suit investigation, or if you're already in a situation where the insurance company has chose to contest the policy, an enormous number of things that need to be looked at. So if it is a misrepresentation as to income, that's one thing. If it is a misrepresentation as to health, that's going to be a whole nother evaluation. And when we talk about material to whether or not the insurance company would have issued the policy, materiality can get into the insurance company's practices in their underwriting. And that can become a very complicated litigation point. And we have won a number of cases over the years where we say, well, you say you would have done something different, insurance company, and now you want to rescind this policy. But when we get your other insurance claim and underwriting files, we see a very different story. You underwrote lots of policies with people with representations that were far worse, or misrepresentations. Whether they were misrepresentations or not, you didn't deem those to be material, and you sold those policies. And so you get into a whole layer of analysis when it comes to rescission and determining whether the insurance company can and will rescind. And we have defeated those both in the claims process and in litigation. And if you have enough information and you have enough arguments to show the insurance company in the litigation that the question as to whether or not it was a misrepresentation or whether it was material is going to be enough such that they can't get a judgment as a matter of law in court, where they can't get summary judgment, as we call it in the business, and they're going to have to go to trial. That's when settlements happen, because both sides have a lot of risk. If the insurance company gets rescinded, the insured gets nothing but their premiums back and no benefits. If the insurance company loses and can't rescind, then if the claim is otherwise payable, they're going to have to pay all of it. So it is a high-stakes game on that side. When you're looking at business insurance, however, there is no sort of rescission concept. It's if there's misrepresentations on the application, those are typically annually renewable policies. They're renewable once a year, not policies like life insurance, long-term care, or long-term disability insurance, where they are annually renewable and can't be canceled unless you don't pay the premiums. In business insurance, they're one-year contracts, and if the insurance company discovers that there was fraud in the application, they can cancel the policy in its entirety and not only not pay the claim, but not have to pay anything under the policies. And that, whether it's both not paying the claim and having no further responsibility under the policy, is also a creature of state law, so it depends on what state you're in to determine whether or not they're going to be able to not pay anything on the claim, but in addition, not have to pay anything under that policy. So that's basically the concepts of rescission and the concept of misrepresentations on the application of insurance that we see in our practice on a daily basis. Fraud can happen in the insurance claims process in a number of ways. Typically, making false statements on your proof of loss or claim forms is a form of fraud, as well as any sworn statements, or if you are required to testify in something called an examination under oath, and you make false statements in that examination under oath, that's known as false swearing, and that can also impact your claim in that under either scenario, if you make false representations on your claim forms or engage in false swearing, you can lose your entire claim, and it can be tossed based on fraud. So we see this often both in our business insurance and individual insurance practice, where people represent certain things about how much their damages were or the cause of their loss that are inaccurate or potentially false. And then in the false swearing side, during testimony, where typically and hopefully you have a lawyer present when you get questioned in an examination under oath, such that if in fact you are making statements that turn out to be inaccurate or potentially fraudulently false or false swearing, that the lawyer will help you work through those and give you an opportunity to cure anything that you've stated that may get you in danger of losing your claim due to false swearing. On claim forms, typically in the business or property loss area, it's going to be that you overstated the value of your claim. And sometimes that happens very innocently. You're relying on engineers. You're relying on public adjusters. You're estimating based on good faith. And the number turns into be something higher than the insurance company thinks it should be. So a lot of times there's a basis to contest an insurance company's claim that you have engaged in some kind of fraud in the claims process or some kind of false swearing, or there are ways to deal with it and cure it. But the most important time to do that is during the early part of the claims process, before the case winds up in a lawsuit and now you're fighting over whether or not it was actually false and was intentional. If there's an opportunity to fix that, you want to fix it during the claims process and not in the litigation. Doesn't mean it can't be done during the litigation, but it's much easier to deal with during the claims process because anything that is inaccurate or wrong can be cured or corrected when you're still in the claims process. So we get a lot of clients that come in pre-litigation where the insurance company has denied their claim, and there may be an opportunity to do something there. But we also get a lot of clients that come in during the claims process when they're having difficulty proving up the claim or difficulty in their interfacing with the insurance company because the insurance company smells a rat, as it were, and starts asking questions and questioning the value of the loss. the nature of the claim, the cause of the loss. So the most important thing I can tell you in this moment is get to a lawyer before that claim gets denied if you're experiencing difficulty, and be careful about what you're estimating, what your public adjuster is estimating, what your experts are estimating when you put in that claim. And if you do have to go to examination under oath, you certainly should talk to a lawyer before you go to one. In the automobile healthcare space, I put those two together. Typically what you're seeing is this is coming up in car accident cases across the country. Now, in many states, you have something called no-fault insurance. And no-fault insurance provides for health benefits, maybe some lost wages and other benefits for anybody driving an automobile in that state. And the theory behind it is that the state wants to ensure that people that get in car accidents in its state have quick access to health care, whether or not they were at fault for the accident or no matter the circumstances. And so what happens is you have a whole new healthcare reimbursement area in states that have no-fault insurance, where people are getting treated very early on in car accidents, and the automobile insurers think there's a great deal of fraud going on. Sometimes there is, because there's a lot of over-treating going on to build up the value of personal injury cases, and because there's a lot of money to be made in treating those patients and treating them often and maybe more than they need to be treated in order to maximize the value of the reimbursement under those no-fault insurance policies. And it's because the insurance companies have to provide these benefits and give people immediate healthcare benefits and give them access to that healthcare, and they're usually under strict rules to reimburse the claims to the providers that are providing that care quickly. And so the insurance companies don't have a lot of time to respond, so they're paying out lots of claims very early, and then they find out that they think there's something untoward going on by the companies that are billing it, by the people that are involved in the process. And so what the insurance companies wind up doing, and we see this a lot in Florida, we see it in New York, we see it in quite a number of states around the country that have this no-fault reimbursement benefit that's a required part of the automobile insurance policy, bringing big fraud claims and civil RICO claims in federal court, seeking reimbursement from the healthcare providers and the people involved in that provision of those healthcare services to get the money back and to stop them from continuing to bill where the insurance company thinks it's fraud. In addition to that, a lot of the insurance companies are now looking to go after the healthcare providers and the lawyers, where they say there's a lot of over-treating going on to build up the value of personal injury cases, even if there isn't a no-fault insurance reimbursement system in that state. And so the automobile insurance companies are bringing these fraud cases now and testing the waters just against both the healthcare providers and the personal injury lawyers that are bringing these cases, saying that, hey, you're sending all your patients to Dr. Smith for treatment, not because he's going to treat them fairly and well, but he knows when he gets them to you, if he's going to keep getting patients and making money and billing the healthcare system, he needs to treat them whether they need to be treated or not. And he needs to keep giving them therapies whether they need it or not, because he knows that you, lawyer, want to build up the value of your client's personal injury case. And so the healthcare provider is going to make money illegally, and the lawyer is going to make money illegally, and it's all part of a vast fraudulent scheme. And that's what the automobile insurance companies are doing. They're doing it across the country, and in states with no fault, like New York, where our primary practice is, we have a massive practice in defending those claims. In New York, we do it in some other states as well. But in New York, it's a significantly large industry. They bring these cases, the automobile insurance companies, in federal court, mostly in the federal court in Brooklyn in New York. And we probably have about 35 of those cases we're defending right now. And a lot of them have no merit whatsoever in our view. Some of them might have some merit, and some of them may have a lot of merit. But it is an industry-wide practice now by the automobile insurance companies to claim that the healthcare providers, their managers, their referring doctors, and even the lawyers are part of this fraudulent scheme to overtreat and overbill and overtest and over-evaluate patients to make money from the no-fault system and the personal injury and healthcare system that impacts the bottom line of these automobile insurance companies. So It is a very big part of our practice, and it is hotly contested in every case that we have, vast majority of the time.